Time for the Tesla weekly update here, and I'm going to start this video on the monthly chart. And I have the Fibonacci pulled up. I have the Ichimoku pulled up on the monthly chart. And I made a video last night talking about these monthly support levels, how when there's panic in the air, it's best to go switch to the monthly time frame just to see where the high time frame support lies. And I made a video last night that said essentially this, that the baseline here around 208.24 and the conversion line down at 201.97 would be a good zone for support. And sure enough, today it went down to the top range of that zone. So is the pain over? Is the panic over? Not necessarily. It could go next week, wick down even lower to the low 200s to test that conversion line as well before any sign of reversal. But it really looks nice that you can see in the past, right? We'll start back here in January 2023, how it just bounced really hard and right up to the conversion line, got rejected for 4 months. You can see that right here, 1, 2, 3, 4, got rejected, could not break above. Then finally, in June, it just took off straight up above to this baseline and tried to get it to flip to support, but all it did is go up to the 618 Fibonacci and it got rejected. And then slowly but surely, it just lost that baseline as support. And it's been resistance ever since. It's been resistance basically ever since it closed back below again in August 2023. And that is, my friends, that is a whole year, right? That's a whole year below this baseline. And that is a big deal because now you can see ever since June and July, this candle looks kind of weird. I don't know why TradingView does that. It just shows a weird candle up there, but it should be a longer candle for that whole month. Maybe they'll correct it later, but sometimes that happens. But anyways, it closed back above the baseline, above the conversion line, and back within the cloud, and even back above that 382 level, right? There's three positive things, or even four, I would say, right? Back in the cloud, above the conversion line baseline, and yeah, the fourth one would be above that 382. So there's four positive things that happened last month that you have not seen before in a whole year, right? This is a big deal. And I believe last time it couldn't really close above because of the confluence of that 50% level and the baseline were exactly the same. And if you look, they were really far apart. The conversion line and the baseline, they were really far apart. So they really needed more time to get closer and closer together. And that's what's exactly happening right now on the monthly chart. The conversion line and the baseline really, really getting close together. And I'd like to see the conversion line on the bottom eventually get on the top side of the baseline, and that would be a bullish cross, right? You can see right here, there was a bearish cross, and you can see there was a lot of weakness once that happened. Once that bearish cross happened right here in November of 2022, there was really nothing positive about the chart anymore. It just kept trending lower and lower, right? So you look in the past, the last time everything was really close together, it took off, right? Really, really took off around these levels in COVID time. And we're getting kind of to that point again where they're going to get closer and closer together. So maybe it could take more time for this conversion on baseline to get closer and closer together. And once that happens, price should definitely take off by that time. But I'm not really worried about this, and I think this is going to be a zone that holds. And I'm going to show you other charts that give more confluence as well. But first, I'm just going to go to the weekly chart so you can see, like even on the weekly chart, we're still at support. And you can see the weekly baseline is at 204.90, and today the price hit what? 205.78. That was the low today. So it almost got back to the baseline, which kind of makes me believe that there might be a little bit more pain Monday, Tuesday to maybe wick through it and then probably reverse, right? But closing back below this 382 for this week, it's not really that big of a deal because it also did it last week as well. It closed below that 382. But what I really want to see is on a monthly close, going back to this monthly chart, what I would really love to see at the end of August, maybe just a wick below these levels, maybe retest some of these levels in the low 200s, and then a candle close back in the cloud, a candle close back above the 221 level, Just all those things happen. So I would love to see this just turn into a wick, like we saw right here in April of 2024. Everybody was freaking out, freaking out, freaking out, but it was just a wick, and the candle closed back above the 236 to hold that level to continue higher. So I would love to see that, but again, there's still 28 more days left in the month, so price can still go down, scare more people, and then later this month, price can close higher and higher. So that's what I'm looking for. Now, let's go to check out the angles chart here. And this angles chart, it did close below that angle, right? But it's not really an exact number because when I hover my cursor over it, it doesn't really give me an exact number, right? No matter how much I zoom in, it doesn't really matter, right? It's more like a zone. And you can see this with this angle sloping down here, this 1-4 angle sloping down. Did it always close exactly on that angle? No. Sometimes below, sometimes above. But every time it closed a little bit below, there was once, twice, 3 times, 4 times, right? Every time it closed a little bit below, it went back above, which means that it was a support because it was not below that angle for very long, right? It was above that angle more often than it was below that angle. And so the same thing can happen here where this can just trend down, right? Maybe next week it can trend down a little bit too. And then the following week it can close back above again and again, right? The bottom line is it's a zone. And as long as it's staying more times on top of this angle as below, then everything will be okay, right? You can see it with every angle, right? Every angle right here, you can see that it's happened. It doesn't hit it exactly, right? So that's still a positive development. And when we also look to the left of the chart, we can just draw a little box here just to see, like, look at this demand zone, right? You can see all the candles that wick through it, even right here. You can see the candles are wicking through it. And if we go further out here, you can see that as well, right? You can see more support right here. So this demand zone is still looking pretty good. And could it come down a little bit lower? Let's see, to the low 201. Yeah, it certainly could, right? And that lower level would backtest this previous high here and these previous highs here, and so on and so forth. So I believe that support is really, really near. And trying to time the exact bottom is really, really hard. So I would not play that game. What I've been doing personally is just buying on the way down. And once it gets to the low, low levels, I'll buy more, right? Because I believe in the thesis that support is holding and it's just going to rocket up eventually. When's that going to happen? Nobody really knows for sure. But the trend is this was a resistance and now it looks like it wants to be support. Which brings me to my chart, the linear scale again, right? The same situation here. So this candle did close below that arc, but you saw it here that it closed above the arc right here in July of 2023. And you even saw it here in September of 2023, it closed above, right? And you even saw it here, but this time it wicked up to the top arc. So this is still a zone, right? It's still a zone that as long as it stays on top of the arc more times than it's below the arc, then I believe that is going to be a support back towards the blue angle and above. So I believe it's just more patience. And one more chart I wanted to show you is the original log scale Gann chart that I've showed from the very beginning. And it's this one right here. I just shared it on X earlier. And essentially, it's that 201 level, right? Which coincides with this blue level. And it looks like it's going to be flipped to support. Like, this is maybe the most important line there is, that 201 to hold. Because if you look in the past, this blue level, look how important it was, right? You can see it was a support, wicked a little bit below, but it was a support. It was a support here, lost the support, then a resistance, then a resistance, then a support, then a resistance and a resistance, and now it's looking like it wants to finally be a support, mainly because this top arc already was flipped to support. So there's no reason to go back down there, right? This level, the 201, should hold very nicely for a bounce and a continuation higher and higher. And again, if you don't remember this chart, you can just look at the levels, right? You can look at the levels, how the orange level was really important too in the past. You can see how it was up and down in between those levels. And the last time it held it as a support right here in August of 2019, it just took off, right? And I believe we're in some sort of similar situation here where this low is kind of similar to this low right here. And then it came up here and then it backtested that level and then it took off. So this low right here, let me just zoom in a little bit. See this low right here and this low right here. Then it went to the top side of that level, back tested that level. We're doing that right now, back testing that level. And then it just took off. And I believe we're in this situation right now, back testing this level before price takes off. And you can see even more similarities in this chart right here. Like this time right here was just this time right here, right? And then it went up, followed the arc down, right? Followed the arc down, right? It's just very, very similar. And this long period of time, I believe it's not going to happen this time because things are moving a lot more exponential. So I believe this long period of time is just going to get cut out. And this right here is exactly this moment here. And I think what we're seeing now is a final flip to support for a continuation to the next level. And on this chart, if you remember, the next level does sit around 2,800, 2,900, and that'll be the next level, hopefully by 2027, right? So still, there's nothing bearish about this chart. Anybody screaming like it's going to collapse, I just don't see it because there's still a lot of support in the 200 zone, right? Now, if that 201, if that 200 zone, if there was a weekly candle closed below it, then I would be a little worried. But if it's just like a wick that goes to the 190s or something, I would not worry about that because as long as a weekly candle closes back above this level, I think everything should be fine. Nothing to worry about. So let's just pay attention to next week and see what happens. But so far, everything is going according to plan. And I'm just going to keep with my thesis and keep buying as price gets lower and lower to my support zones. And next we have Palantir, and I have this also starting on the monthly chart just so I can see where monthly support sits before I go to the weekly chart. And it looks like price is now once again below that 50% level, which it does sit around 25.48, which means it closed the week below that level too, right? So we need to pay attention to that and understand that it is not holding as support like I wanted it to on a weekly basis, but on a monthly basis, there's still 28 days month and it still can close back above, just like you saw right here. Back in March, it wicked above, but it wasn't ready to be support yet, so it closed below. So, but on a weekly basis, it still was above, right? So essentially, what really needs to happen is this monthly close our candle needs to close back above that 50% level in order for me to really want to continue to be really bullish on it. Otherwise, it could come back down to test that 2160 level at the conversion line, but there's still lots of support before that. And I just want to pull up my GAN here just so you can see it here. Yeah, here is my GAN, and you can see exactly this 45-degree angle that I have here. It essentially hit there today for support, right? So is it necessarily going to go back to the 2160? No, this could be all the pain that we saw, right? And the pain was all the way down to 2375, which was pretty bad at one point today, but it did recover that. And now we're going to switch to the weekly chart. And the weekly chart does show that that level does sit, in fact, at around maybe 2316. That's the baseline. And the angle sits a little bit lower, maybe around 2290 or so. So basically, support is kind of near, right? It did close the week below the conversion line and that 50% fib, like I was saying before. So that means price could drift a little bit lower next week, down towards this lower support levels of the lower $23, right? Maybe 2316, all the way down to 2290 or so. But when you zoom out and you look at this market structure, all these higher highs and higher lows, higher highs, and this is probably going to be another higher low for a continuation higher. So I really think that maybe on a weekly basis, there might be another week or two that closes below this 50%. But I do believe because of this 45-degree angle, I do believe the month does have a possibility to close back above that 50% level. And if the month does close back above that 50% level, then I do believe price will continue higher and higher. Now, that brings me to my log scale for even more confluence of support around current levels. So let's go check that out right now. And my log scale chart, do you see where that orange level is, right? That orange level, the all important orange level, it was at 2450 just about, right? Maybe 2455 or so. So it held that this week, right? It closed the week back above, which I think is a really good sign because you can see in the past, like look how many wicks above that line right here. There's one wick above, 2 wicks above. There was a couple candles that closed above it, but then straight back down. Then that's 3, 4, 5, 6 weeks that wicked above that orange level, and it could not close above it until now. So it broke out right here. There was a 6% weekly candle, went up to this angle, a successful, so far successful back test of that orange line. So I believe it might not even get to that conversion or that baseline down there because this level is holding nicely. So if the following weeks continue to close above this, then I believe that could be all the pain you see for price to continue higher and higher. So that 50% level that I showed you on linear scale, it's not as important, I think, as this level right here, just because you can see all these wicks where it was resistance and now it's looking to flip to support. So I'm going to maintain this thesis until or if there is a weekly candle close below that level. But if there's just more wicks below there, then that's just more confirmation that this previous resistance has flipped to a support, and I am bullish on this chart. There's nothing really to worry about, and the only thing that it's below right now is that conversion line. And if you turn on the 821 here, it's also below the 8 EMA, but it did wick through that 21 EMA and it held it as support. So there's really nothing to worry about so far. This is a perfect looking chart. And again, I'm watching this level, the 2450 level, into next week. And if it does close above that, then I think there's a really good chance that the bottom is in, the new higher low has been found, and then price can continue higher. But again, if it does close a week below, then it could test the baseline down in the low 23s or the high 22s, right? So we're going to keep an eye on this level going forward, but things are looking pretty good for the future.